Our next witness is Ernie Goss, is McAllister's chair and professor of economics at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. Dr. Goss has published over 80 research studies focusing primarily on economic forecasting. Dr. Goss's research spans local, regional, and national perspectives. He has had an extensive review of American automotive industry. Dr. Goss, thank you for being here today, and I look forward to hearing your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Schuler and distinguished members of the subcommittee. I want to thank you for inviting me to appear before you today to discuss the economic issues related to the closure of GM and Chrysler dealerships across the nation. My testimony will identify some of the community benefits and costs associated with the closures. Up to this time, the media has focused on the private cost and private benefits related to shuttering more than 1,900 dealerships across the U.S. For example, GM CEO Fritz Henderson recently claimed a savings of $928,000 per closed dealership. There was no mention of the cost or benefits to the public. To date, taxpayers have invested more than $64 billion in Chrysler and GM, and that doesn't include GMAC and the suppliers as well. Currently, less than 1% of GM and Chrysler stock shares are held by investors other than the U.S. federal government. Thus, both GM and Chrysler are essentially 100%, plus or minus 1–2%, taxpayer-owned. As public corporations, public costs and public benefits of corporate decisions must be an input into the decision-making, including the decision to shutter dealerships. These closures will result in a loss of thousands of jobs, both direct and indirect, and produce severe economic hardships in many communities across the country in the form of plummeting tax collections, tumbling charitable contributions, and sinking local real estate values. The losses will be particularly acute and difficult for small towns and rural communities of the nation where automobile dealerships are an integral part of the area economy. At this time, neither GM nor Chrysler is offering assistance to the affected communities or to closed dealerships, at least to my knowledge. This departs from GM's 2004 dispensation of Oldsmobile, costing GM approximately $1 billion, with a significant portion of that $1 billion going back in the form of vehicle repurchases. With public ownership comes public responsibility. As such, the analysis of the closures must include the public cost and benefits of the dealership termination. Across the country, these dealerships employ hundreds of people in good-paying jobs. They support the infrastructure of many communities by sponsoring sports teams, raising funds for needy projects, and contributing to local charities. In many cases, the target dealerships have been a huge part of the community for generations. What I'm contending is that both private and public costs be part of the decision-making process. Thus far, to my knowledge, there has been no cost-benefit analysis conducted as part of the dealer termination process. That is, while the private benefits may or may not exceed the private cost, there has been no explicit examination of the public cost, especially for rural communities where these dealerships are very important. I will provide a brief examination of one announced closure, termination of Meyer Arp Auto in Auburn, Nebraska, a community of 3,400 residents in southeast Nebraska. Each month since 2005, I've conducted a survey of bank CEOs in rural parts of 10 states with an average community size of 1,300. States included are Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Illinois, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. In May of 2009, I asked the bank CEOs whether the dealership closures would have a significant impact on their area communities. In those communities slated for dealership closure, the impact were judged as negative and very significant. In total, and this is total, 1/3 of the bank CEOs expect the closures to have a negative impact on their local communities. In an effort to gauge the impact of just this one closure, I simulated the closure of Meyer Arp using input-output analysis. According to my estimates, Auburn will lose, now this is a very small community, $680,000 per year in yearly sales, more than $260,000 in wages and salaries, and in excess of $54,000 each year for self-employment income. Additionally, the area will lose 6.8 jobs and tax collections of $77,000, and I'm just including only the new car operations there. In summary, the lack of analysis and transparency in the decision-making process is troubling and could produce costs to the public greatly exceeding the benefits. As stated by one Nebraska bank CEO in our May 2009 Rural Main Street Survey, this is his quote, "I have yet to see the real cost to Chrysler and GM in keeping rural dealerships open." Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for having me here today, and I look forward to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Goss.